Well, 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 look what we have here. Today we're going over a conversation that was mentioned on yesterday's edition of TSN Insider Trading. It was Pierre LeBrun who had himself the quote here, talking about the Montreal Canadiens and a defenseman on the team that may be on the move. No, it is not the top point producer of all blue liners on this team, Mike Matheson. No, it is not one of the younger prospects in a Justin Barron or anybody else. Instead, we are talking today about a veteran, a poised, defensively minded, shot-blocking kind of guy in David Savard. Because Darren Dreger had himself a little update as to how Savard's status is on the trade market right now, and we also had ourselves another article linking him to a few other teams. Without further ado, let's head over to NHL Watcher's Twitter account, because his tweet from yesterday summarizes the Pierre LeBrun quote, or excuse me, this is actually from 2 days ago. My bad. Pierre LeBrun said this on TSN Insider Trading: "I don't believe the Montreal Canadiens want to trade David Savard. I think they value him for all kinds of reasons within the organization. If someone sends them an offer that really makes them think, though, then yeah, he could be dealt. But at the moment, he is not a player the Habs bring up to other teams. They're not committed to trading him." Now, when it comes to that idea, you could say, Lego, why are you making a video about this? Like, Pierre LeBrun is saying the Canadiens don't want to trade this guy. What's the big deal? Well, let's go over the profile here and just kind of explore other conversations in regards to a Savard trade to really fill out the meat of this video. David Savard is 33 years old, right-handed defenseman, 6'1", 234, so a very chonky dude. And he is signed on till the end of next season, making $3.5 million a year. Initially a Columbus Blue Jackets draft pick in 2009, Savard made the NHL in his early 20s and has never looked back. It's honestly kind of weird to see that he had a 36-point season back in 2014-15, but ever since then, he has really evolved into more so of what he is today. And in order to help us out with that, I mean, the scouting report on elite prospects is literally written from earlier last month. A defensive defenseman, David Savard is a hard guy to play against. He competes strong along the boards and comes often as a winner out of most battles. He stands his ground and is hard to knock off balance. Savard is a shot-blocking machine and will sacrifice his body in order to help the team, although he tends to focus too much on blocking shots that he misses his defensive assignments. He possesses a strong stick and wins most of his stick battles. David Savard is a great defensive addition to a team's shutdown pair and is leading by example with his on-ice play. This year, Savard has himself 11 points in 28 games played, on pace for about 24 over the course of a full season, and whilst he never really has been the most productive guy, nor the healthiest guy, this season he missed out on a good chunk of the year. David Savard is still one of these important leadership figures, and one of these defensemen that the Montreal Canadiens actually have good experience with. We bring this up from time to time, but part of the reason the Canadiens made the finals in 2021 was because of their defensive formula. They had guys like Edmondson, Sherratt, Petrie, and Shea Weber that were all just big dudes. And while Petrie was obviously the most offensively capable of that bunch, these other guys were just tough as nails to play against. You didn't want to go up against Shea Weber, you didn't want to go up against Ben Sherratt, you didn't want to go up against Edmondson, because all these guys could bully you in the Montreal Canadiens zone. David Savard kind of plays a similar game, and he commits himself a ton to blocking shots, which, as I've been saying the entire year, is good for me because I have him on fantasy. I picked him up as a free agent. He's been one of the best players on my team so far. But because he is in that early 30s category, because he is a bit older, because he is more of a heavy, defensive, reliable rock, there could be an idea that says that if a team wants to go out there and trade for him, they'd have many reasons to examine why. And to help us out with that, we're going over onto the fourth period, because David Pagnotta's Trade Watch List 2024 Top 25, which is updated as of February 7th, so yesterday now, has a few interesting pieces in regards to Savard, and he is listed at the number 17 spot. Let's go out there and read what it has to say. For teams looking to add a strong, reliable defender to their blue line, David Savard checks a lot of boxes. He has another year left in his contract, and he could bolster a Cup contender's blue line for 2 runs. Teams that are reportedly linked are the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now this is interesting. Partly because David Savard was a Tampa Bay Lightning in the 2020-2021 season. He won the Stanley Cup with that Lightning squad, which is very poetic considering he is on the Canadiens now. David Savard was not the most high-flying point producer on Tampa when he won the Stanley Cup. He only had 5 points in 20 games played after all. But, as we had talked about, you're not really getting David Savard because you want a point producer. You're getting him because he blocks shots, because he's a defensive beast, and he does his own thing in his own zone. Toronto could be in the similar boat here, where they need themselves a shutdown, defensively-minded guy. Everybody's talking about Chris Tanev, everybody's talking about these extra guys in Philadelphia, like the Walkers, the Steelers, whatever. But David Savard very well could be in that mix if you're willing to pay the price. The TSN guys went out there and said that it'd be difficult to find a trade for Savard considering how much the Canadiens value his profile and his skill set on their team. So, you would really have to force things at hand to make it work. As for the Toronto Maple Leafs, we've already talked about this, but they're lacking a few first-round picks already. They have themselves limited assets when it comes to being able to make a trade for a top guy. So if you are in the market for a player like David Savard, like David Pagnotta is saying the Toronto Maple Leafs are, then maybe you might have to pay up a bigger price. Maybe you're reaching into your prospect cupboard and pulling out some guy that the Montreal Canadiens could see value in and saying, here's this guy, here's that guy, here's a third-round pick 2 years from now, please give us David Savard. Maybe that's what gets it done. Who really knows? We had talked yesterday about the Philadelphia Flyers and their entire conversation about Sean Walker and how they may be trying to manifest a first-round pick coming back the other way for a guy who many people wouldn't immediately assume is worth a first-round pick. We had seen this work wonders for the Canadiens in the past with all the Ben Sherratt discourse before he got traded over to the Florida Panthers. Everybody tossing around, oh, he's worth a first, he's worth a first, he's worth a first. Even though his skill set on the ice wasn't really point producing, it wasn't really any of that, it was just, hey, he's the offensive guy. Is that really worth a first? I don't know, but everybody is saying it is, so it must be. And then the Canadiens got the first-round pick for Sherratt. As for the Tampa Bay Lightning, you could debate as to whether or not they have a bigger edge here, considering that they have had that history with Savard. I mean, there isn't any trade protection on Savard's contract, so I guess it doesn't really matter too much if you're debating between Toronto and Tampa. I guess it just boils down to who has better assets. But when it comes to this entire saga, I mean, Julien Brisebois has made trade after trade, year after year, to really bolster up these Lightning teams to help them go far in the postseason. Brad Treliving, I mean, he hasn't really had the longevity of being on a good team and being a buyer like Julien Brisebois has the past few years, that I kind of question where the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to go in terms of making big trades and making big acquisitions to help them out at the deadline into the 2024 playoffs. And of course, all of this has to come down to Kent Hughes being willing to accept a trade in the first place, so you have to go out there and muster up some big change if you want to make a trade for Savard. But either way, if you're a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs or of the Tampa Bay Lightning, where do you think Savard matches in your lineup? If you go over to the Leafs lines right now and you see which defensemen they have playing on the right side, you've got TJ Brodie, Jake McCabe, and Timothy Liljegren. You've also got Giordano and Benoit on the left side. Do you want to swap somebody over to the opposite side, get Giordano out of there? Because that guy has been very peculiar over the past few weeks. We'll just leave it at that. If you're a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, what are your thoughts on David Savard potentially replacing one of Darren Radish, Eric Chernock, or Nick Perbix? I'm not gonna lie, I've been a really big fan of Perbix considering his shot-blocking abilities too. You also have Emil Martinson-Lilleberg on your team, whom I don't really know anything about, so hey, let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on the current defensemen on your teams in Tampa and Toronto, and whether or not David Savard could be the guy to fix that. Also, what are your thoughts on the trade price? Because LeBron's saying it would take a lot to pry him away from the Montreal Canadiens. What do you think that a lot is? What do you think is the appropriate amount that you would be willing to give up if it meant getting somebody like Savard in return? Canadiens fans, of course, same question out to you. Do you want to trade Savard away? Do you see a point in doing so? There are so many defensemen on the Canadiens right now. Would you rather keep Savard in his leadership, or would you just say, hey, let's just move him over, we'll get Logan Mailloux or something up in there, and we'll give them extra developmental minutes at this point? What are your thoughts on this entire Savard trade conversation? Let me know in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.